the Attorney General.
Is this Aaron Fray, the Attorney General?
No, this is the Secretary for the Attorney General's office.
No, I mean, is this the office of Aaron Fray, the Attorney General?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. I have a question, and I was told that he may be the one to be able to answer this question. I had contacted the Secretary of State and disclosed to them how under Title 29A, 109, Statute 109B, it talks about the exemptions from registration of this subsection apply only to non-commercial use and operation of vehicles in this state. So I, for the last year, have been going through the process of authenticating my status as a true American. I was born in Massachusetts, but Massachusetts actually was Maine, and then Maine became its own separate charter in 1820. And so therefore, even though I was born in Massachusetts during the time Maine was Massachusetts, so then I ended up going to Maine. I filled out all the affidavits and did all the paperwork and had my 2 witnesses, and I've become now finally back on the land and soil jurisdiction, and am now proud to be real, true, non-citizen Maine national. So what I've been doing in the process of 10 years is also studying what happened with this country, when did we really lose our freedom, and what really happened. And I found out about the Act of 1871 and how they freed the slaves and converted them into 14th Amendment citizens, or U.S. citizens, or second-class citizens, if you will. And slowly over time, all Americans, without really wittingly knowing about it, have been presumed and implied that they are all U.S. citizens, and that they're slowly giving up all their rights and freedoms as the people and becoming persons and trustees to the system. Well, I've gone through this process of freeing myself, and I see in Title 29A, Statute 109B, it talks about the exemptions from this statute. And if you look, it talks about a letter to the state secretary. And so what I did was call the Secretary of State to confirm these things. And then she said, well, you're going to have to contact Jill from the Department of Motor Vehicles. So I got a hold of the registration manager, Jill, and we talked for probably about 45 minutes. And then she just educated me that, honestly, even though I'm right, she doesn't know how to answer or confirm these questions, so that I can go and write a letter to the Secretary of State proving that my automobile is mine, I own it. I was wondering what formalities, what credentials were necessary within the letter to provide to, because the way that they say it in Title 29A, I'll look up Title 29A right now for the both of us. It's called reciprocity. And it basically says the Secretary of State, after determining that like privileges are granted by a jurisdiction. So if I'm out of the jurisdiction of the federal government and in the jurisdiction of the territory of Maine, and have filled out the paperwork that makes me antecedent, which means before the local governments of today, it means that I have rights and privileges. I have rights and immunities. I'm not saying I can go kill anybody, obviously, but as long as I don't hurt anybody, damage property or anything, then I haven't committed a crime. But if I contract with somebody, then that makes me subject to those policies, ordinances, and those things. But I'm educated that, I spent a lot of time too talking to officers, and they told me that if I don't have this letter, they will rip me out of the vehicle, they will abuse me, they'll kidnap me, steal my property, and then force me in front of a magistrate that, and then force me to go through their arbitrary procedures that have nothing to do with the law. So what I'm doing is figuring out a way to operate under the law and through you guys of what is the proper way for me to not have to register.
I'm going to transfer you through to a lawyer because, quite frankly, I'm not a lawyer. I don't know much about the law, and it's a little over my head.
Okay.
But let me transfer you to our lawyer who deals with the Secretary of State policy, and he should be able to help you.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you. What was your name again?
My name's Haley.
Haley. I'm just doing that for record keeping to let people know that I've talked to Haley. Okay.
Yeah, I'm not
Thank you,
usually at
Haley.
the front desk, but they'll know who I am.
Hey, I really appreciate you even transferring me to somebody. Hopefully they can give me the information I'm looking for, because I'm not joking. If you look
I hope so too. Sorry, it's a little over my head, and I'm not sure what to.
It's okay. I appreciate your honesty, and God bless you. And it's okay. And thank you.
Sweet. I hope you get the answers. I'm going to transfer you right now.
I appreciate it.
General John Bolton. I can't take your call, but if you'd like to leave a message, I'll get back to you as soon as I can. If you need immediate assistance, please press 0. Thanks.
Record your message after the tone. When you've finished, you can hang up or press 1 for more options.
Hi, John. This is Seneca. The reason why I'm calling is because I've been going through a lot of areas of trying to recede from the system and become truly independent and back to the original roots. And in this process, I study the laws of the titles of Maine, of how to become exempt from registering my private property over to the state. Under Title 29A, Statute 109B, it says exemption from registration of this subsection apply only to non-commercial use and operation of vehicles in the state. When you scroll down, it says the formal agreements is the Secretary of State, after determining that like privileges are granted by a jurisdiction of the United States or province, shall enter into a written agreement with that jurisdiction of the United States or province, setting forth the conditions under which residents of that jurisdiction engaged in interstate commerce operations in and throughout the state are exempt from the registration and licensing laws of the state. I've gone through the process of becoming a Maine national, and I've talked to police officers to get a better understanding that, hey, these guys are not allowed to trespass me. They're not allowed to just pull me over and violate my Fourth Amendment rights or my right to travel by any means unless there really truly is an emergency. Peace officers are scarcely becoming more tyrannical. In fact, I take it upon myself to call these guys and ask them, are you a military? Are you a for-profit corporation? Who do you work for? Etc. And it usually leads down to very aggressive comments and reactions, but I eventually got a hold of some lieutenants. And I let them know that we went through all the definitions of what a driver is, as opposed to a free agent or a free civilian, or a people of the several states, we should say, and or a capital C citizen of the people of the several states of the nation state that they reside in from the several states. And then it leads into being exempt from non-commercial activity, essentially, and that I didn't want my rights violated. I wanted to be able to establish my status and be able to have the letters. He said, without that letter, he will rip me out of my vehicle and steal my property. And so this could lead to a 1983 lawsuit. And, you know, we're coming in a time and age where after this whole entire COVID scare, it's made people wake up and want to take back the responsibility and liability and transparency of being self-governed and going back to what this government was originated for, the Constitution, how the government was created for the people, by the people, and can be altered and to reform itself at any given moment for the people. And you'll find that in the Constitution of Maine 1820. So essentially, this officer said, without this letter, he will abuse my rights. So I'd rather operate to the letter of the law. I contacted the Secretary of State. They said they didn't know what to do. Then they released me and transferred my call over to the registration manager of the Department of Motor Vehicles, which I told them I don't see how they're going to be able to help me, because really this should lean more towards the language of what the Secretary of State needs for this follow through to be able to conduct business appropriately so that everybody can have on status who I am and it be completed, officiated. So then she told me that she didn't know what to do. She didn't know any of the answers. And I said, well, that's, definitely scary, because if this is what your title is saying, then it would be fraud if you guys couldn't follow through. It would be essentially falling under where it would be like false advertisement, and you're misleading people. And, I understand that this is a way for a government to constantly keep. There's actually a law, a maxim of where you don't convert people away from their religions. It's like an act of war. So I'm not doing this to try to convert people, but I definitely believe that the system that we have needs people to comply and submit to its formalities for it to have the power that it does. And, to keep the private sector alive and to have that recognized and keep going is the real true way of the union. It's the real true republic. It's what we need to reestablish back in this country to preserve the future freedoms to come for the children. Never mind me. But my act is going to help set the precedence for everybody else. And so if you could, call me at 207-707-7329, and
You've
please.
reached the maximum recording time allowed. If you are satisfied with your recording, press 1. To review it, press 2. To delete and re-record your message, press 3. To accept your recording, press 1. To review it, press 2. To send your message now, press 1. To mark it as important, press 2. To mark as private, press 3. Message marked private. To send your message now, press 1. To mark as important, message sent. To disconnect, press 1. To enter another number, press 2. If you'd like assistance, press 0. Please hold. Someone will help you in a moment.
Good afternoon, Office of the Attorney General.
Hi, is this still Haley?
Who?
Okay. I was wondering if I could speak with the district attorney, please. Aaron Fray.
Oh, I'm sorry, you have to call the front desk.
Who's this?
My name is Laura.
Laura?
I'm calling litigation, yes.
Okay. I need to talk to somebody. It's urgent. I already talked to the front desk. They've sent me to a person, and then they asked me if I needed further assistance. And I said, yeah, because it's actually important. I am.
Who transferred you here?
Well, first I talked to Haley, who she said she's normally not at the front desk. So I talked to basically a stranger. Then she forwarded me not to the person that I needed to talk to, but an individual named John, who was not available, by the way. I left him a message, but the results of me actually getting follow-ups and callbacks is usually nil to none. Nobody ever does a follow. So,
What kind of case do you have?
okay, my
What are you
situation.
calling
Thank you so much. And you're Laura?
Yes.
Laura. It's a pleasure to speak with you. I am Seneca. I will try to be hasteful as possible as far as my concerns. So the reason why I'm calling is I spent 9 years studying the law on my own, more like a jurisprudence. So I was going to be a police officer and a lawyer, but I find that I'm more leaning towards constitutionalism than I do statutes, acts, and stuff. Now, do I disregard the legality or the precedence or the foundation of these things? No, I don't. But I know for every recourse, there's a remedy, and mostly with constitutional laws and the rights, there's not enough people really sticking up. So I've leaned more towards that. With that being said, it's led to a path of where, I would say by God, to understand that the people are the origin and the authority and really the government, and that through the people, we have a government that represents the people, and that it has public servants and all these other good things. And over time, the power card has been flipped into the hands of the system, and more people fear the government than the government fears the people. Well, I think it's an equal balance, but neither here nor there. I have been led to the path of becoming a Maine national, securing my birthright here as an American. And with that, it gives me rights and immunities under the Constitution and protected in each state that I follow, even from the United States Constitution and all the articles that were formed. And that as a national, I have political and natural born rights that are given to me that I do not need to ask permission. And what it's brought to my attention is that most of the government operates under commercial status. So to have that status, they created the United States citizen in 1871. And then
Sir, what are you calling about?
because under Title 29A, Statute 109, Section B, it talks about the exemptions from registration of this subsection apply only to non-commercial use and operation of a vehicle in the state. And when you read further down to Section 2, it talks about the formal agreements that are necessary and needing a letter from the Secretary of State saying that after determining the privileges are granted by a jurisdiction of the United States or province, shall enter into a written agreement with that jurisdiction of the United States or province, setting forth the conditions under which residents of that jurisdiction engage in interstate commerce operations in and throughout the state are exempt from registration and licensing laws of the state. I've talked to police officers and I've mentioned this statute, and they said that if I don't have a letter from the Secretary of State, they're still going to violate my rights. So I called the Secretary of State, and they told me that to call the DMV. The DMV told me to call you guys. So now I'm calling you guys on what credentials are necessary to get this letter not only acknowledged, but yet approved and moving forward within my status. So I am exempt from registering my vehicle to a foreign agent or entity. Does this make sense, Laura?
What is the foreign agent?
The foreign agent is the government is under a separate jurisdiction of the federal government, but it's also under the jurisdiction of the people within the confines of the state that it resides in. All
Do you reside in Maine? Obviously, it sounds like you do.
I am actually a national of Maine. I am currently down in Florida. My mom passed away, but I'm going to be back in Maine with a vehicle or an automobile that is my private property. And I believe I have not contracted with the federal government or the state of Maine to give up any of those rights.
Where are you residing right now?
Inside myself, ma'am. My body is in the territory of Florida, but my national status and my address and all my stuff of political being exists in Maine. I am a Maine national. So all my automobile will be from Maine. Does this make sense?
It does. We get sometimes calls like this. Yes, it does make sense. I don't know what to tell you. I can certainly take your name and number and have somebody contact you.
That would be amazing. It's very significant moving forward to secure my rights. That way, as I move forward, I don't, because
I would suggest you write to the Office of the Attorney General, but in the meantime, I can certainly get your number and your name and see who would be able to speak with you. More likely somebody who is assigned to the Secretary of State.
okay. So you will help me a little bit?
I'm not saying I'm going to help you. I'm saying I'm taking your message and I will transfer that information to the AAG who assists the Secretary of State.
Thank you, Laura.
So that he may be able to answer your questions.
Well,
I'm not
while I was
being able to do that.
okay, while I was reading off these statutes, did you happen to actually look up these statutes and codes yourself? Or
I understand what you're saying. I don't need to look them up.
oh, okay. So you already know what I'm talking about.
I understand what you're telling me.
Yes.
I understand what you're saying. It's not the first time I've heard that.
Okay. But if you read all these definitions, you'll see the difference between a person. I've taken back myself. I mean,
Are you going to give me your number?
yes, 207 707-7329. God bless you, and thank you for listening.
And I'm sorry, sir, what is your name?
The name they gave me is Seneca, Seneca, and my surname
Last name?
is Seibert, and it's actually copywritten. So if you could put the little circle with the C in the little circle, that would be much appreciated.
S-E-I-B-E-R-T?
Yep, that's the last name.
Okay. And you say you are in Florida right now?
Currently,
You are planning
yes.
to come to Maine?
I've been here 200 days. My mom passed away.
You are in Maine already?
I'm coming back to Maine very shortly. But in the process, I am still conversing because once I became a Maine national, they told me that for a whole entire year, I'm still a part of Maine no matter where I go. But I have to come back. If not, I'm going to have to affiliate myself with a different assembly. I said, okay. So I'm still in contact with the government. I've still contacted the governor, even though they don't ever return my calls. I know I'm leaving messages. Someone's hearing them. I'm not falling upon deaf ears completely. But there's only so much the de facto side can do with the de jure side. When you
So
work,
what you're trying to tell me is that you want some sort of letter that says that you are exempt from registration to
Yes,
be able to
ma'am.
drive a vehicle?
It's not driving, because driving technically means, by all terms and definitions, conducting commercial activity, which means you're at a transportation use or for hire. And I'm not
What kind of letter do you want, sir?
to talk about how I'm exempt from all registration and licensing laws that follow under the reciprocity law of Title 29A, Statute 109, Section B, following subsection 2 of B.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. Well, as I said, I'm taking your information, your name and number, and I will forward it to the attorney that answers questions.
I will say, Laura,
to the Secretary of State.
I'm going to say, ending the call, for all full transparent things, I have documented this call as a professional call and also record
That's something
keeping.
you should have told me beforehand, sir. That's
Well,
why.
Maine is not really a two-party state, but I'm just letting you know, I'm going to also reserve all rights, okay, moving forward.
That's
And
fine, sir.
I apologize.
No, that's fine.
Okay.
There's nothing I'm telling you that is not correct. I'm taking
right.
your message.
And I really appreciate you, Laura. And I hope you have a wonderful, amazing day and somebody makes you smile. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. You too.
Bye.